So for our first one, we got an 8-unit that's in Smithville, North Carolina, and this was our first one that we're a GP on. So in terms of finding the deal, one of our partners that we had been talking to, she actually owns property already in Smithville, and she had bought a couple single-family homes from a guy, an investor, who then also decided he wanted to sell his 8-unit. And she had talked to him a year before, and he wasn't ready to sell it yet. And then his wife got sick, and they wanted to have more time, and so he had come back and said, "Okay, I'm ready to sell that one now." He also has a few other properties that she's still talking to him about maybe that. So I thought that was interesting for us, only because it was like you build a relationship, even if it is a single family home or a duplex. You build relationships with the potential sellers, but also with the contractors, lenders, everyone else that you'll need on your team. So it has 8 units. Each unit is 2 bedrooms. It is all on one floor. So it makes it a little bit easier for construction and stuff. So the purchase price was $330,000. We negotiated over about a month time period. The rehab we're planning on is for $106,000. We actually closed on it about 3 weeks ago, and we just started the rehab on one of the units. And part of the process of going through this, we of course we have our checklist of when to do what. And one of the things that came up was, okay, now we got through the whole process of buying a property. Something in the back, like what we had to do was then like, okay, how do we actually execute? So in terms of how long is it going to take us to do the construction on all 8 of the units? And the hard part for me in having the conversation was, who are we kicking out, right? Because we're going to have to turn over all these people. So we started going through that process and planning it out. And we actually started that back when we went to visit the property, when we did the physical due diligence. We started going through and seeing each of the 8 tenants, which ones, aren't treating the properties well, which ones were, in the worst shape. So we kind of used that strategy to start deciding on that. So what we liked about this deal, there's actually like an old downtown area that has a lot of really cute shops and restaurants, and it's maybe 3 blocks walking distance to that. And that area is really starting to attract like a younger crowd now. So we like that it was close to that. Rents were under market. Like I mentioned, the seller, there's 2 partners. One of the partners was pretty absent. The second partner's wife has been sick, so he hasn't been really paying attention. He's self-managing. So a lot of the rents were way under market. So we liked that, and that we have the opportunity for value add for construction, remodel. We're adding a washer dryer connection to each of the units, which in that area is a big value add. So in terms of the team, so we have 5 people on this team. So this is something that we have a coach, and he brought to us to kind of get us through the first deal. One of my concerns was I thought that was a lot of people for 8 units. But when we actually got into it with everyone having full-time jobs, it really was enough work to split among 5 people. So in terms of like the first person, we have my husband and I. So my husband is the reason why we were kind of brought into this one. They needed more help underwriting because they weren't sure on, how so a couple of the partners had done bigger deals. And then the other ones have only done single family homes. So he did a lot with the underwriting, getting it ready. And then I was helping a lot with just the management, like getting everyone to do tasks. And I'll talk about that on our lessons learned. So for the second person was the person who actually brought the deal to us, who lives in the area. So they were the boots on the ground, and they also own a construction company. So that obviously was a huge help when we go to do the rehab, or even just walking to the units during due diligence. They were able to right away tell us electrical is going to be $6,000. This is going to be that amount. So that definitely helped a lot. In our other one, we didn't have that. We just brought a construction guy with us. So we had a better idea on that. So 2 of the people on the deal, they had experience on larger deals. One of them was really key. He had lender contacts and banking contacts, and that helped us be able to get a really good rate for our lending. So we actually ended up, like you see under the wins, we actually ended up getting 80% loan to cost. When we did the underwriting, we were trying to get 80% loan to value. So loan to cost actually means like we got to finance all of our rehab cost into it, our CapEx cost. So that actually meant that instead of bringing in, at the beginning, we estimated that we'd all need to bring in about 40,000 into the deal. We ended up only having to put in 17,000 at the end. So just that change in what we were doing with the lending made a huge difference in how much money we all had to come to the table for. So that really helps us. But just want to talk through the team here to show kind of none of us had everything, right? All of us had some expertise, some contacts. So I think having the more people in it, it kind of made me nervous at first because all the deals we've done, I've done everything for them, right? All the single family homes, I did everything. But for these, it was so helpful to have someone who had the banking connections, the lending connections, even insurance, like that took off like $2,000 off of what we had estimated for insurance. So I think it's important just in the sense of when we're coming in and we're new, just think about what you do have and how you can help out in those ways.
Does everyone own the equity equally?
There was one person, so the one who brought the deal, she was actually with a construction company. They were less, so they were about 15,000 as opposed to the 40,000. But they were also putting in when they brought the deal, and they were putting in a lot more of the work, doing in the construction and in the management. One thing we had to decide during this was whether, so she already manages all their single family homes, but I prefer having a external property manager, especially when you get into the process of having to turn over all 8 units, because then as the owner, you're going to people deciding who's going to get kicked out next, right? As opposed to the property manager, like looking at it, just from the numbers, from like, how should this work? When do the leases end? And they had been through it several times. So when we interviewed them, we asked them if they had been through that process before, because it's something we were sensitive to. Like when we went and did the due diligence, we went into each of the people's homes and we talked to, all of the current tenants. So it's something for me that I just kind of felt bad about. So I think it's something that needed to be done. I mean, they were paying, the rents were currently at $450, and that was really low for the area. So I think that was, when we're making our plan, we also put that into perspective in terms of like how much notice we were giving people, that we wanted to give like 60-day notice instead of 30 days to allow them to, find somewhere else. But some of it was things that really need to be done. Like some of the floors were buckling in some areas. Some of the windows, like where we were putting in, it currently has window AC units. And so we're switching those out and we're putting in, what are they called? The per room ones, like they go on the wall and they're zoned, the zoned ACs. So we're putting all those in now. And some of those had leaked and actually caused like mold and stuff to be on the outside of the walls down them. So it was stuff that needed to be fixed. And some of them still had for the electrical, fuse boxes. So 2 of them had fuse boxes, which is considered just not safe now. Like you can still pass inspection with them, but they are highly suggested to be changed because of risk, especially for insurance purposes. So there were things that even if we didn't want to raise the rents, that we would need to get people out to do full remodels on. So in terms of lessons learned, the biggest thing for me, like I said, one, how important the team was and every little bit the team brought. The second part was that it was difficult in the sense of, like, for my W-2 job, I'm a director of operations. I manage teams. I've been a program manager. With this, we come in and everyone's equal. It's not like you're at a job and someone says, okay, you're the boss, right? So in terms of the relationships of how you lead people and get everyone on the same page with tasks and stuff, wasn't really being done at first. When we first got there, everyone was afraid to say who does what, because we're all supposed to be equals, right? Like we're all partners in the same deal. So what I ended up doing was just asking them, saying, hey, I'd like to create a tracker and start assigning people tasks to make sure we all don't miss anything. And everyone was really open to that. And they were like, that would be great. So we actually created a tracker of everything we thought needed to be done before closing, and then went through and put names next to it. And of course, asked everyone, like, what do you like to do? What are you interested in doing? Like, what areas should we put you on? But for me, that was, just navigating how to do that, like having someone on the team that actually is running the team, even though you're all partners on it, is still really important. Because we were just at the beginning dropping everything. Like people would say, like, hey, we need lending. And everyone was like, like waiting for someone to tell them to do it, right? Or you had 5 people all doing the exact same thing instead of dividing out the roles. So we started doing that. But do you guys have any other questions on the Smithfield one? No? Okay. This one I think was a really good experience for us to go through, just because I didn't think it was so overwhelming. We did like doing the LP side of things. We are also planning on eventually, we want to get into next into like a GP on a larger deal. But we are still planning on balancing it out in terms of just portfolio wise. For me, one thing I like about the smaller deals, well, one, it seemed, it was more realistic to get into. The second thing was that in terms of us having control and having more of an input, and we actually wanted to put our own money into, like, we want to invest our own money also. Was kind of the reason we decided to go with like the smaller deals at first. That we got through the entire process of doing it and we understand every aspect of it without having also the extra part of investment and syndication regulations and that. So that's kind of the reason why we're starting with this. And we've talked about it also. I think we'll still do some of the larger GP ones, but we still want to keep building the smaller portfolio. Like if we wanted to, it takes a few of us to vote and we can decide to sell. So instead of, bringing in investors and such. So for this one, in terms of the exit strategy, we are doing a refinancing in 3 years. So for the first 3 years, we have interest only. And then we're going to be refinancing that out into another loan for 4 years. And then we're all going to vote then and to see if we want to hold on to it or if we want to sell it at that point, depending on where the numbers are.